Welcome back to B3 Comics. Today we return to Thor God of Thunder by Jason Aaron and Isalder Beach. The issue begins with present-day Thor journeying to the center of infinity to a place called Omnipotent City, Nexus of the Gods. Led by a surly librarian, Thor visits the Hall of the Lost, seeking the names of gods who have simply disappeared from history. Thor continues his investigation by visiting the last known whereabouts of these gods, finding nothing but carnage, nothing but the atrocities committed by Gore the God Butcher. In his search for clues, Thor journeys back to a cave in Russia, where 1,000 years earlier he had faced Gore for the second time. At that time, Gore had warned Thor that he would make him suffer until the very end of time. As we are shown glimpses of Thor, past, present, and future, we are left to wonder, will Gore really be the end of Thor?
So I'm not necessarily sure that the Thor we see in the future that's actually his end. I think a general theme for the series has been that Thor is no ordinary god, so he won't.
He's going to be the last one standing.
Yeah,
I think
he can overcome.
Anything.
Overcome the god killer.
But it's just that this god killer. So in the present day, we find out that Thor really realized the extent of what God Butcher has been doing.
Yeah, how it's just like laying waste across the universe.
And he obviously knows about it, and we don't know how far in the future this end of the last god, it could be like millennia in the future. And so up until that point, he's not able to stop him. So it makes me think, maybe Gore the God Butcher is the final thing that stops Thor, the last god. And so it makes him even more mythical of a bad guy, because we already know he's a badass, a complete badass. And
I was actually sort of thinking, because in this issue we see Thor go into Dark Cave, and kind of like throughout media, like Star Wars, for example, when Luke Skywalker goes into the Dark Cave, he almost has to confront himself, like his inner darkness. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking maybe Gore the God Butcher is actually the dark side of Thor, and that is why the God Butcher doesn't kill him.
I guess that would be an interesting thing, because he is like a shadow. The way he acts and the way he fights, he's all these tendrils and shadowy things coming out of him. And even his name sort of sounds familiar to Gore, or Thor, Gore. And then obviously he's a god of thunder, but he's also like a war god.
Right.
And so Gore, there's Gore and war. I don't know, maybe I'm grasping at straws here.
Well, I just think it would be kind of cool if it's like you have to overcome your own evil nature. Like, even gods have to do that.
Speaking of gods and, their natures, I think that's one of the things that this series is really expanding on, where we get to see a glimpse of what's above the gods, and we also get to see more about how gods themselves live, because Thor mentions how he can't remember everything, just because as a god, you still have... You still
have a finite amount of memory.
Yeah, not all gods are all-knowing. And so it's kind of interesting that, he's just forgotten so much.
Right. And we also get to see the Omnicity, I think it's called? Omnipotent City.
Omnipotent City. The Nexus of the Gods, is what they called it. And it's really cool. Just like that panel itself, I thought was...
that looked like a city for gods.
Yeah.
For the gods of gods.
Yeah.
And I also really liked how the librarian was kind of poking fun at Thor, like saying, I didn't think you were much of a reader. There's no weapons here.
Yeah, this librarian seems to really think poorly of Asgard as a whole, because I guess they caused so much trouble. So much war. Odin, Loki obviously has had probably chapters written about, or books written about the stuff he's done.
So what did you think of Thor calling Tony Stark a god? Did he deserve the title?
I was so surprised by that. That was like one of the biggest compliments I think Tony Stark has ever received, where he's like, even among all these mortals, you're like an immortal. And it's like, what? Tony Stark?
I don't know. Tony Stark.
Just because he's smart and has money, he gets to be called an immortal?
I think he deserved it.
Really? I think there's so many other heroes that are just as...
What hero would you throw out that would deserve it more?
As an immortal? I mean, it depends on what you define as immortal. Like, what do you mean, like someone who just doesn't die? Or are you talking about someone who's like...
deserving
really,
of the title of a god.
Of a god among men.
Yeah. I think Tony Stark was arguably the closest.
No, I would not want that type of a god. He's one of those really arrogant, really, I guess...
I think most gods are pretty arrogant. Thor is incredibly arrogant.
I think he was in his youth.
think he still is.
I would think a Peter Parker would make a better God, just because of how much he sacrifices himself.
No, Peter Parker's the common man, though. Just like Captain America. Neither of them.
I think a common man deserves to be a god instead of a douchebag like Tony Stark.
Okay. So the grade, what would you give this issue?
I'd give it a 4.5. I'm loving this this entire series so far. This and All New X-Men, the top of Marvel now right now.
I would give this 3.5. I definitely like how it's jumping between time periods, and the art is very good as well. Thanks for watching B3 Comics review of Thor God of Thunder number 3.
Before we finish, we got a question for you. If not Tony Stark, who do you think in the Marvel Universe, other than Thor, is deserving of the title of a god?
Leave your comment below, and thanks for watching.